All right, let's dive into one of the most interesting and honestly counterintuitive laws from Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. We're talking about Law 35, Master the Art of Timing. In a world that's constantly screaming at us to move fast and break things, this law, well, it tells us to do the exact opposite.
So let me just ask you straight up, is faster always better? I mean, our entire culture is practically built on the idea of speed, right? You've got hustle culture, startup manifestos, social media trends. It's all about constant motion. But what if that gut instinct, that urge to just rush ahead, is actually a huge strategic mistake? Because here's the real kicker with this law. In the serious game of power and influence, rushing isn't a sign of ambition. It's a sign that you lack control. Control over your emotions, control over the situation, and maybe most importantly, control over time itself. You know, impatience makes you predictable, and being predictable makes you incredibly vulnerable. We're all living under what you could call the tyranny of now. There's just this immense pressure for immediate action, for instant results. This law is all about challenging that, about stepping out of that craziness and seeing things from a totally different perspective. And that brings us right to the law itself. Law 35, Master the Art of Timing. This isn't just about being lazy or waiting around. It's about turning time from this enemy you're always racing against into an ally that you actually command. The core of the law is just so powerful. It says, never seem to be in a hurry. Hurrying betrays a lack of control over yourself and over time. Always seem patient, as if you know that everything will come to you eventually. Did you catch that key word? Seem? This isn't just about feeling patient. It's about a performance of total confidence. It gives off this vibe that you aren't just reacting to things, but that things will eventually have to react to you. Okay, so how do we actually pull this off? Greene breaks it down into 4 main pillars. First, like we just said, you have to seem patient. Second, you have to become a detector of the right moment. You're sniffing out the vibe of the times. Third, and this is a tough one, you've got to learn to stand back when the moment just isn't right. And then fourth, when that moment finally does arrive, you strike. And you strike fiercely. So let's see how this actually works in the real world. We've got a fantastic historical example. It's a story of a man who used patience to climb from being a total nobody to the absolute heights of power. So meet Joseph Fouché. Back in the 1780s, this guy was about as unremarkable as you could imagine. He was a quiet, plain-looking math teacher in a seminary. He never even fully became a priest, always just kind of keeping himself a little separate, watching, and most importantly, waiting. And then 1789 happens. The French Revolution just explodes, and the entire old world is thrown into total chaos. Now for the impatient, the hot-headed people, it was time to charge into the streets. But for Fouché, our patient observer, this was the moment he had been waiting for. The entire political game had just changed, and it was finally perfect for someone with his unique skills. And this right here perfectly sums up his strategy. As the book says, patiently waiting for his chance, he kept his options open. See, all that time he spent doing nothing, that wasn't weakness or him being indecisive. No way. It was a deliberate strategy to stay uncommitted, to stay flexible, so he'd be ready to move when the time was absolutely perfect. And that's the crucial lesson here. While all the fiery revolutionaries burned super bright and then just burned out, Fouché was playing the long game. He outlasted every single one of them. He navigated the insane politics of the revolution to eventually become Napoleon's Minister of Police, literally one of the most powerful men in all of France. Now, this strategy isn't just about waiting for some big, chaotic event. It can also be about applying slow, steady, methodical pressure over a long period of time, which we see perfectly in our next case study. Think about King Henry VIII back in 1527. The man was desperate. He absolutely needed a male heir, and his wife, Catherine of Aragon, couldn't give him one. An impulsive guy might have started a war or just thrown a massive tantrum. But Henry, even in his desperation, played an unbelievably patient game. For 4 long years, he played politics, carefully chipping away at the Pope's authority, until finally, in 1531, he had enough power to just banish Catherine from the court. So Henry's story teaches us a totally different side of timing. He got that some obstacles are just too big for one single rushed attack. They require years of deliberate, unending pressure. His patience didn't just get him a divorce. It ended up creating the Church of England and completely changed the course of history.
So, what does this all mean for us? How do we take these big historical lessons and actually apply them? Well, it really comes down to mastering three different dimensions of time.
First, you've got the long wait. This is what Fouché did, appearing patient, keeping your options wide open, and just actively watching the world around you. Second is recognizing the right moment, that perfect sweet spot when the trends and your own situation just click into place. And finally, there's the fear strike. When that moment comes, you don't think twice. You act with all the force and energy you've been saving up. When you boil it all down, it's this simple. The impatient person is always reacting. They're like a puppet, and time is just pulling their strings. But the patient person, they anticipate. They see how things are flowing and they position themselves to take advantage of it. They don't just manage time, they learn how to control it.
And that's what I want to leave you with. Think about your own goals, your own ambitions. The line between strategic patience and just plain procrastination can be really thin. The key difference is awareness. Strategic waiting is active, it's observant, it's intentional. So you have to ask yourself, have you been patiently waiting for your moment, or have you just been wasting time?